Hello, hello. Welcome to the Story Studio podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the movie Doctor Sleep. And just so FYI, we're going to spoil the entire franchise. So we're going to spoil the Doctor Sleep movie, obviously. We're going to spoil the Shining movie. We're going to spoil both books. At least I am. So sorry to either of you who, don't want those books spoiled, but that's how it's going to be, motherfucker. So that's what we're going to do today. First of all, something cool.
Can I do something that should have been cooler?
Yeah.
All right. Dave, have you watched? I know you mentioned this. Have you watched Tales from the Loop?
Not yet. No. You gonna ruin it for me?
I feel like Dave brought it up.
Yes,
originally.
I won't ruin it for you at all because I don't even know if it's a thing that you could. Well, you could. There are spoilers, I guess. I feel weird about this show. I feel a little conflicted because
like weird when you climb up the rope in gym class.
Not quite like that. I feel like it has so much going for it, and I really want to like it. So I feel like I really like some of the acting in it. I really like I love the concept. So what this is, it's an Amazon series that's based on a series of paintings. And the series of paintings are beautiful, but they're like rural Ohio with like future tech in the background.
And they were in another country.
Well, it's set in rural Ohio.
And these are real. Are these paintings that exist independent of the show, or they exist in the world of the show?
No, they exist independent of the show. And
so they were like the inspiration, the source material for the show.
I feel like it was Norwegian or Swedish or something.
Yeah, I think it's Swedish. And Jodie Foster, it's her project, so she directs the episodes. And it's beautiful. Like, it's beautiful. It's a beautifully shot show. It's really smart, abstract, slow. It's an anthology show. So every episode takes place in the town, and there's this thing called the loop where they're like doing experiments, to see how the universe works, and weird things happen.
Like Florida.
Right, just like Florida. In fact, the original working title for this was Florida Man, and then they changed it to Tales from the Loop, weirdly.
Yeah.
Wait, you said that in a serious voice.
No, that was
okay, because that was a very serious delivery on.
No.
Deadpan.
That's the delivery I use when I'm fucking with Ethan, actually, because he doesn't know what I'm fucking with him. So it is interesting. And I like the idea that it's an anthology. So you see someone who's in the foreground in one episode, they're like a main character, and they're just not even mentioned, or in the distant background in another episode. And as the viewer, you get to see how they're all related. I like all of that. There's so much that I like about the show, and yet I feel like it just didn't amount to anything. So it's almost like the uncanny valley where it gets so close to perfection that you see how flawed it is. I don't know. I think that it had so much potential, and I liked a lot about it, and still I feel like it's just kind of an empty exercise.
That's like life.
A little bit.
So much potential, but in the end, it's meaningless.
So I don't know. I feel like that was something that should have been cooler.
All right, my something cool is something cool. I follow the rules because I'm cool like that. Color Out of Space, which is H.P. Lovecraft story. The movie is with Nick Cage in it.
So it's automatically good.
It's automatically fucking awesome. Richard Stanley, the director. You're familiar with him, I'm sure.
I don't know.
I'm actually not.
The guy that did Island of Dr. Moreau, he had a few movies out, and then he was doing that movie. And there's a documentary. I forget what it's called.
Yeah, because that movie was just a train wreck.
Right. He got removed from the movie.
I think everything with Marlon Brando in the last half of his career was a train wreck, actually.
So Richard Stanley did like a couple of like horror movies and stuff, and he's like this like auteur, like, really cool shit. And I guess he bumped heads with Val Kilmer, which doesn't surprise me, in that movie, and got removed from it. And instead of leaving the set, well, he went on this drug binge wherever they filmed it, whatever island or whatever it was. And then he snuck back on set like dressed as background characters. And the guy, it's a crazy story. And I didn't see the documentary, but I heard about it. But for a while, he's like kind of blacklisted in Hollywood. And then he, I guess he got a chance to do this, and it was fucking phenomenal. And I believe he's doing 2 more, like for a trilogy of H.P. Lovecraft stories. And what they did, I think it was like $6 million budget, which is not much. What they did with it was just fucking phenomenal. And it was just great. So check it out.
Dave, have you seen a movie called Bone Tomahawk?
No.
I think you would really dig it. The only reason I saw it was on a list of like awesome movies for low budgets, which I'm always interested in because I want to see what they did. And this thing was $1.8 million. All right, which that's low budget, but not like the lowest budget you've ever seen. But it also has Kurt Russell in it, and Josh Lucas, and Richard Jenkins are the 3 names. And all people I like, right?
Yeah.
And it's a horror Western. And it had so many Joel vibes. In fact, right when I was done with it, I slacked Joel. I'm like, have you ever seen this movie? Because I feel like you might have wrote it and forgotten about it.
Bone Tomahawk sounds like a Joel expression.
It totally does.
It was my stripper name in college.
I believe that. It's really, really violent and really dark. But it is unapologetically a horror movie and a Western. And I've never seen that mashup before, especially one that is so elegantly done. And it does not look like a $1.8 million movie either. Like wardrobe choices, location choices, all of that, really, really smart.
Yeah, Color Out of Space was, it's cosmic horror. So, it's just fucking... everything's kind of hopeless near the end of it, but it starts off like
The Mist,
more so than that.
Worse.
Yeah. But it starts off like building
Johnny
the character.
just threw up in his mouth.
The character work is good. You have this family and like a meteorite or asteroid or whatever fucking lands on their lawn, and they just, I won't ruin it, but they just slowly start to fucking lose their minds, and this thing is like changing the area around them.
And where do we see this?
Anywhere you can rent movies. Like Amazon had it for like $1.99 on sale.
Oh, is it new? Is it old?
It's been out a couple months. It came out, I think, late last year, so it's a relatively new release on video.
Okay.
But it's on sale for $1.99. I think, I don't know why, but yeah, it's really, really good. It's worth the rent, definitely.
Cool beans.
Since we're talking about budgets and stuff, I guess this could function as my something cool. Although it starts out like Sean something cool, is have you guys watched Artemis Fowl?
No, not yet.
No, I heard it was
a horrible
review. It's fucking reprehensible.
Oh
it's
my God,
the biggest piece of shit. And
I don't have Disney yet.
And it was $125 million budget. And so when this movie was over, it was one of those things like when my family and I watch movies together, we don't usually get all analytical, especially about the technical stuff. So the idea of talking about like flaws in the story and budget, like strangely, you would think for my family, but I'm kind of the odd bird, and so I don't get a lot of that. But so we all just usually in a bad movie, we just kind of like, we're good sports. We just kind of play along. It's movie night, and we just like pretend we're having fun. But this one, it was like, by the end, we were just looking at each other like, everybody's going to admit this is really bad, right? And we got into this discussion about what, Cube came up recently. You guys have seen Cube, right?
A long time ago.
So I have not, but I know the premise.
Cube's budget was $350,000, and I think Memento was like $2 million. Absentia, Mike Flanagan's was like 80 grand or something.
That's next on my list to see. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I've got that on my list too. I'm watching first movies. I think that's kind of an interesting. By the way, Guillermo del Toro's Kronos, not good in my opinion.
I saw that a long time ago. I liked that.
I thought it was. I didn't dig it.
I liked it for what it was. I mean, it's a very small, very Mexican movie,
That might be it. Is it might
That's
be
when Sean was Mexican.
it
Yeah,
might
I
be
was
a little.
Mexican at the time.
It's possible that I'm discounting the Mexicanness of it. You know what I mean? I don't mean culturally. I mean like the vibe, like the way that film is done down there. I don't know a lot about Mexican cinema, but anyway, after Artemis Fowl, like first of all, we watched the pitch meeting for it, which was great. So like, what's
Stacey
this guy
said it
do?
was savage.
He's there. He exists. So what about this other girl? She seemed really important. She's there too. So like,
Is it worth hate watching, or is it just?
if you have Disney Plus anyway, it might be worth hate watching. And because there's an interesting, here's the point that I'm trying to make is we all know this, but the more you kind of study it, the more it just, I don't know, it hits me on a new level, just how incredibly important, like story really, really does trump all, which should be obvious, but it's amazing how many people fuck that up. So like the people behind Artemis Fowl apparently decided, okay, so don't worry about story. Let's just put in a whole bunch of CGI and do stuff that looks, I guess, cool. And it ended up being this piece of crap. And then you have a movie like, so like, what was Pi made for? Maybe $1 million?
$86,000.
Okay, well then I'm thinking of Primer, which is probably about, no, that was probably under $1 million too. But anyway, like all these ultra low budget movies that it's like they worked within. The reason Cube is fascinating to me is because there's basically one set. Like it's basically one set, and there's what I think 7 actors, and none of them are names. So like, of course, it's easy to make a budget go far when you just don't have that many outgoings. And I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting to see like a big mainstream movie and just watch it under a microscope like that. I mean, there are a ton of them, obviously. But I thought that was interesting. So it would be, yeah, it's probably worth the hate watch. Just know what you're getting into.
It's probably like watching somebody some rich asshole pour $125 million into a flaming pit. Speaking of money and movies and all that shit, Charlie Kaufman, there's an interview with him in the Wall Street Journal
I saw that.
He has a book coming out, and he was
Dave's favorite director.
Yeah, he was talking about how Netflix did not ruin Hollywood. Hollywood
ruined Hollywood. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Are you going to read his book?
Oh,
it's like 700 pages or something.
How about people ruined Hollywood because of what they're demanding? How about that too? Take a little responsibility for ourselves.
I will for sure read his book. He's one of the most interesting writers there is. I think he's awesome.
And he has a movie coming to Netflix. So
yeah,
it's supposed to be like a thriller, suspense thriller, but he says he like kind of changed it up. So I'm like, oh, I hope he didn't fuck it up.
Oh well, yeah. By your standards, he did. I guarantee that.
I'm torn. I like him, but at times he just annoys the shit out of me.
He's just one of those people where like he is telling.
I bet I'd like his books. I don't know. Maybe
none of his characters are likable. That's what it is. Like I don't think there's a likable person in any of his movies that I've seen.
Yeah. But he's challenging story like at its base level, and we're storytellers. We should appreciate that.
All right. Well, we should appreciate the premise of this episode, Dr. Sleep.
Yeah, let's appreciate the premise of this movie. So first of all, or this episode, first of all, this was Dave's suggestion, and I don't know that I pushed back, but I probably sort of did in concept because I famously, well, I didn't like the book and I was vocal about it.
And why didn't you like the book?
Well, have you read the book?
No, I haven't. I haven't read it. I was gonna read it before I saw the movie, but then we talked about it and like, well, there's no way I'm gonna fucking read it.
Okay, well, a few days. I will tell you throughout this episode why I didn't like the book, and the reason. Okay, so my summary of my opinion on this movie, like the way that I felt about it, was I went in. Did we say we were talking about Dr. Sleep? Dr. Sleep. So, and I know I like Mike Flanagan. He directed Haunting a Hill House and Gerald's Game and Absentia, which we just mentioned, although I haven't seen that yet. What else has he directed? Those are the big ones. I feel like there's one more.
One of the Oculus movies.
Stephen King something though. Didn't he? Oh no, he did. This sounds like I'm fucking like making a joke, but I don't think I am. I think he did Ouija 3. Ouija board.
No, two, I think, and it was good.
I actually think he did too, because I think I was looking up his IMDb.
Because we had talked about this when I saw it, and I was like, it was better than it had any right to be. It was better than the first one. So yeah, and that's what made me like, this guy's really fucking good. He can take a shitty premise like that and make it good.
So I went in sort of with my walls up, but okay, open-minded enough. And for the first 2/3 of the movie, maybe more, I was like, just not interested. Like, I appreciate what Flanagan did. I thought that his casting, one of the things that I thought was really, really fascinating was how well he cast the roles that he and his casting director cast the roles that were in the original Shining movie. So like the woman who played Wendy Torrance was like a really good Shelley Duvall, and she clearly studied Shelley Duvall's performance because she added in her affects. But that wasn't enough. Like, the movie is, again, spoilers for the entire franchise. When we got to the scene where they like pin down that kid and slowly torture and kill him, I'm like, well, Dave's got a hard on, but this is just not my movie. Like, I just don't like shit like this. It was just unnecessarily grim, and I thought that it suffered from a lot of the stuff that I didn't like about the.
See, and that was right when Dave was getting oily.
Oh yeah, he was prepared. You know, he knew it was coming.
I don't like seeing children hurt you fucking monsters.
There's a site like Mr. Skin, but it's for torture, and it gives you the index, you know, so you get ready. Jesus. Okay, here it comes. so, but then when
Mr. Skinned alive.
But then when they went to, do you remember when Paul Rudd did the Mr. Skin face and like what was that movie where somebody had?
It was 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Huh? 40-Year-Old Virgin. Somebody had an idea to do a nude scenes website. You're like, Mr. Skin? Anyway, so when the moment where it changed for me and I started appreciating it was when they went to the Overlook. Okay, now here's the big spoiler.
Like the last 20 minutes.
That does not happen in the book.
Right.
Oh.
So everything I liked about the movie was not in the book. And everything I didn't like about the book, everything I didn't like about the movie was from the book. So what this told me was I did not like Stephen King's sequel to this property. I did like Mike Flanagan's sequel to it. But it seemed like there was this interesting identity crisis where it was like, he must have had a real hard time trying to figure out, what am I making a sequel to? So, for instance, scenes like the hedge maze from the original Shining, the Kubrick Shining, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Like, none of that stuff is in the book. And yet there was this, because the movie is a bigger cultural phenomenon, I think, than the book, at least in like the zeitgeist stuff.
That's true.
And so there's no way he could ignore the movie, which is what King did when he wrote when he wrote Dr. Sleep. He was ignoring Kubrick's Shining and writing the sequel,
which he notoriously hates.
Well, he was writing a sequel to the book. I mean, and Dick Halloran died in the movie, but not the book. And I think this movie was a sequel to that movie. Like, the things that happened in that movie are followed up in this.
It was both. He walked a tightrope. I thought it was interesting. Dave, you read the Shining book, right?
No, I haven't, but I know the differences.
So to be clear, you're not an authority on the Shining.
No, but I know the some of the changes that were made from the book to the movie, because I'd read about that, and it feels like the continuation is from the movie to the movie, not from the book and movie to Dr. Sleep. I don't know.
From my perspective, it was both. And because, so there was a lot of homage paid to visual elements of Kubrick's Shining. So first of all,
absolutely true.
Yeah. So let me just stay for the record. Kubrick's Shining is one of my favorite movies ever, and King's The Shining is one of my favorite books ever. So like, I come in as a pretty hard to please audience on this, I think. And I like them both for totally different reasons. And I don't know, like King, I just wonder if he, like, because it was an adaptation of his book and he didn't like the way that his book was changed. But I think if you separate them from the adaptation, then it has a lot of merit as its own art form. But maybe he just didn't dig that. And so I almost wonder if when Flanagan or whoever acquired the rights to adapt this, if there was a little bit of like Stephen King, swinging the big club of like, well, hold on, maybe he had script approval or something like that, because
he didn't, but he did approve.
Right. Okay. So I just wonder if there was a little bit of like okay, well, I need to pay a little bit more attention to King's version than otherwise I might have, because the movie felt schizophrenic to me in that way. But I don't know if it did to you guys.
No,
Well,
go ahead, Dave.
I was trying to figure out why you thought that it reflected on the book and the movie, and I think I realize now, because the movie The Shining really played down the supernatural elements of it, whereas the book did not. And here he played up the supernatural elements. Is that how you say it?
Well, I think there's a little more
reasoning?
to it than that. And when I first read, so I had seen The Shining several times before I finally read the book. And so when I read the book, it was like, whoa, this is a really different story. So there is a lot more supernatural elements, but it's also much more of a family drama. And it's about, so Jack Torrance is, afflicted by these ghosts, which really want Danny. They really want his son, but they sort of settle for Jack. And but there's a huge thing that's going on with Danny and Jack. So that's father and son in parallel to Jack and his father. So, Jack is an alcoholic. That is a big theme in the book. Right. And then him struggling with it and his abusive father. And there's a lot of like relationship stuff. Wendy isn't a dish rag in the book like she is in the movie. The endings are very different in the book ending, like Dave said, Halloran. And actually that's a part where that felt like dismissive. Like you play up this whole thing with Halloran, and then at the end he just literally walks down the corridor and is axed. Okay, game over. Good thing that dude came back. In the book, he saves them and takes them back. And there's this weird thing in the book that is just like, you really have to suspend disbelief, because the boiler of the Overlook the pressure needs to be dumped every like 12 hours or something like that. Otherwise it will explode, which nobody ever sleeps in.
Is that a feature or a flaw?
It's something that the guy reminds him, you have to come down, you have to dump the pressure off the boiler.
Did Apple create the boiler?
Right. It's just like, I just have a real hard time with that. I forgot. Well, now the hotel's blown up. But none of that is in play. And at the end, the Overlook is destroyed, whereas in the movie, it is not destroyed and they just leave. I don't remember what a question I'm answering here, or just how different they are.
Yeah, I felt exactly the same way. I felt like it was really schizophrenic.
And you have read the book and seen the movie The Shining, right?
I've read The Shining a few times, and I've seen the movie a few times. I have not read Dr. Sleep, the book, though. But I think that's fine. I think I still have enough perspective here. Unlike Johnny, I actually don't like the movie The Shining. And every time I've watched it, it's because I know how popular this movie is. I know how loved this movie is. I'm going to give it one more try. And including recently with Haley. I just don't like the movie. I think it's cold. I think it's everything I don't like about Kubrick is in that movie. And it's nothing like the book I love. And there's just not enough for me there. Maybe it's like Fight Club for Johnny. I read the book first. I just, and I just don't think it's even a good interpretation of that material. I just don't.
Oh, it's definitely not a good interpretation.
Yeah. I just don't like what Kubrick did with it. And I can't divorce myself from the actual book that I liked. And I read it when I was like, 9 or 10 years old. And I really, really liked it. Like I like that book a lot. I think I probably read The Shining, not like Johnny, but 3 times, maybe 4 times, which is a lot to read a book, with all the books out there in the world. So I do really like the source material. It is one of my favorite King books. But I just have never, ever resonated with the movie, although even that was better than the Steven Weber miniseries from the 80s, which I also did not like.
Do you like other Kubrick movies? Do you like 2001?
I think Kubrick is super overrated, but I do like some of his stuff. I like Eyes Wide Shut a lot. I like Kubrick. I don't love Kubrick.
Is AI considered his movie?
I consider that a Kubrick.
I love that movie.
Yeah, I thought that was Spielberg.
It is Spielberg, but it was Kubrick's story and treatment, and he died right after Eyes Wide Shut, and then Spielberg made Kubrick's last movie.
See, that's interesting because that does not feel Kubrick to me at all.
Oh yeah, it feels like Kubrick and Steven Spielberg having a love child for sure. To me.
Well, because Kubrick likes those. He has a lot of full shots where you're seeing like feet and heads, people that are sort of unnecessarily distant from one another, long lingering silences. a lot of photographically composed shots with like converging lines and stuff. And I don't remember AI having much of that.
Well,
It had Spielberg's warmth, I thought.
Right. But it was his story. It was their treatment. They had worked on it together on and off for like a couple of decades. And it's like, oh, it was an homage. You know, he's gone. I'm going to make this movie.
I think the visuals near the end were more Kubrick.
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
I should watch that again.
I do like Kubrick. I don't love Kubrick, and I do think that Kubrick is also overrated. But for The Shining, or for Dr. Sleep specifically, I did feel it was specific. So I had not read Dr. Sleep, so I'm watching it, and for the first half of the movie, or more so, it's not a movie that I loved, but I do like Mike Flanagan a lot. I think he has a lot of skill. I like his visual sensibility. I like what he does with characters. I like how grounded he is as a director. So even if something is unbelievable like this, or like Hill House, or like Gerald's Game, I'm there. I believe his worlds, and he does bring me into it. But the whole first, I want to say 2/3 actually, I'm watching this and I'm thinking, why is this a sequel to The Shining? This doesn't.
Okay, that's interesting, because that's exactly the way I felt. I was going, do I like this movie? Do I not like this movie? And until the torture kid scene, I was like, I think it's okay, just not as a sequel to The Shining.
Yes, and I didn't like poor little Jacob Tremblay getting like, all the steam raped out of him or whatever they were doing. But I don't know. I just thought, why is this a sequel to The Shining? Why is it like, it could have been any world. Danny Torrance could have been named, Jacob Marlowe, like whatever. It just didn't matter. I don't see The Shining here. And then all of a sudden, it turns into if you haven't seen The Shining, nothing else makes sense. And so I felt like it was really demanding on just the average casual viewer. I see why this movie flopped. It got decent enough reviews. People liked it. People who liked The Shining liked it. But it's almost like if you aren't intimately familiar with the book, that doesn't matter because it's so far removed from the source material. But if you're not intimately familiar with the movie, then once you get to that final act, it's just kind of like, what's going on? Why am I here? And so I felt like it was too schizophrenic and not in a good way.
The director's cut, I went ahead and watched it because it was.
Oh, that's another thing. Dave tells us there's a director's cut on this shit. The one we watched was 2.5 hours, and it seemed plenty long. I didn't feel like I was missing things.
Well, you were. I really felt that there was stuff missing that should have been left in. Stuff that set stuff up. Conversations that they had. In the beginning, when they show the flashback to Danny when he was a kid and he meets Halloran on the bench there, they talk about how what the hotel did and how it fed on the darkness, but it also could feed on the light. Stuff that kind of sets everything up. And if you didn't see it in the theatrical cut and you didn't see the other movie, even if you saw the other movie, you don't know that. So he's kind of explaining the ground rules. And there's another scene when with the woman that died of the overdose, that annoyed the shit out of me. That the fucking he left the baby there to die. That really made me not like his character. So
well, you're not supposed to at the beginning. He's a piece of shit.
Yeah, but that's a hard one to forgive. So, but the scene where he's going to take the money from the woman and Halloran appears, he first tries to put Halloran in a box. That was cut from the movie. And Halloran's like, you can't do that with me because I'm not a ghost, I'm a memory. But it doesn't make sense with the logic of the film because he unless a memory is a different kind of ghost. I don't know. I couldn't quite grasp what the fuck was happening because if he wasn't, because he can't be just a memory.
One of those things you're just going to have to get all the way off their back about.
Well, I feel like he wasn't just a memory because he was imparting knowledge to him that, couldn't be gotten if it was just a memory. So
If it was something he subconsciously knew.
Well, he didn't know about the group, and Halloran did reference them and talked about them and stuff. So there were elements in the dialogue that was cut that kind of made it a little more. The characters felt a little more connected. There was a longer NA speech or AA speech that he gave. The scene with him and his father's ghost in the hotel bar, that was a little bit longer. So all these things that I wanted more from in the theatrical cut were actually in the director's cut. I wish they had left it all intact. It made a better experience for me.
Well, it sounds like I would have been fine seeing that if I wasn't given a choice. Like, hey, here's just the better version of the movie is 3 hours. I'd have been fine with that.
Yes.
But after watching the 2.5 hour version, there was like I had no want to watch a 3 hour version.
But I did like the movie. I liked it a lot. I would have liked it better as a TV series. I think I wanted more on the characters, and I liked the one girl. What's her name? Andy, Snakebite Andy, whatever the fuck. The girl in the movie theater.
Yeah, she's the one who's a pusher.
Yeah, she was awesome, and I liked the lead with the little hat too. I thought she was.
Yeah, so
I like Dark Carnival characters. I think were great.
Yes, I didn't like them. That's interesting.
I liked the girl because she was going after a fucking pedophile. I was like,
she seemed like a character you would have made up.
Exactly. That's my kind of character. Someone out for revenge. But I don't like how they just I don't think there was enough with her. I mean, she wasn't the star of it, but the casualness in which she goes from somebody that is seeking revenge to somebody that goes and later takes a child, that should have been like, that's a big fucking flip. So there should have been some, like I wanted more of their characters, like their struggle with, how the fuck do you go from somebody that's avenging predators to going and becoming a predator? So that's a story that I wanted more from. That would have been great in a TV show where you're in their heads.
Like she deserved her whole episode. Yeah. I agree with you. I would have rather, basically the movie that Johnny had no interest in, I would have been interested in that being explored a little.
I would have been okay with that movie if it had been a standalone, this is the story of the True Knot. But trying to tie it to Danny Torrance.
But that's how I felt. Like I didn't see why this had to be anything to do with The Shining. And if Mike Flanagan just makes it a sequel to The Shining at the end, and that stuff's not even in the book, which Johnny said, and I didn't even know, then why the hell is Dr. Sleep a sequel to The Shining?
Well, exactly. And that's a lot of the problem I had with it. I think that I was
with
probably...
the book, you mean?
Yes. I think I was probably able to compartmentalize the pieces of this movie and appreciate them individually. I think that that's sort of what's going on here. Because I wouldn't say that I really liked the movie. It's more like it pushed some buttons for me. Some good ones, some bad ones. So like, just again, super spoilers here. In the Dr. Sleep book, they go to a campground that is on the site of the old Overlook, and they like suck out the steam from the girl, I think, and it's like something, or maybe I don't remember exactly how it works, but it's like her grandmother has cancer, and so it's like cancerous steam, and it like poisons and kills them all. And the whole, I think that I was
Deus Ex.
Yeah, it's a little much, and the idea of having a showdown at in the campground is like he got that idea from M. Night Shyamalan, I think, with it's just glass, just put in a parking lot. But I think I appreciated some of the cleverness here. So in the book version of The Shining, there's I mentioned the thing with the boiler, and Jack goes down, and he has a last minute sort of like chance to either do what the ghosts say or save his family, and that isn't in the movie because Kubrick didn't do it. But what was interesting was that Flanagan used The Shining's ending in Dr. Sleep, the original book ending, like to the line. So do you remember that the scene where he's got the axe and he's over the girl and he's like possessed and he's going to kill her? It's after Rebecca Ferguson's character, Rose the Hat, dies. And so Oh, and the way she dies is very different in the book. Like she's sicking the ghosts from the hotel on them. I thought was satisfying in a way if it's going to be a sequel to The Shining. But that scene with the axe and where she's saying, you know, you're wearing a mask and you know they say things but they lie. Like that's word for word from the book. And so that was interesting that it was like, well, you didn't use it the first time, so let's use it now. And then, you know, they could still destroy the hotel. But things like recreating the maze, these are things that like kind of ticked on me and on a nostalgia level rather than a story level that I appreciated.
Oh, Mike Flanagan is really great with visuals. And one of the things that I did love, so to your point, Johnny, there were things I appreciated that I didn't really, like, I'll never watch the movie again. But that doesn't mean
I watched it twice.
Right. 5.5 hours worth for you.
I think I would watch it again because now I know what to expect. I don't know if I would like it more, but I would watch it again.
Yeah, there's just I would watch it again if you know, like someone came over and like, hey, have you ever seen Dr. Sleep? I really like it. But there's so much great stuff to watch, you know, that I haven't seen, and so much stuff that I love that I'd watch again first before Dr. Sleep. Having said that, it absolutely had its moments, and one that I really liked was when Ewan McGregor first gets to, Danny Torrance first gets to. How was he cast, Johnny, compared to the Danny in the book?
He was cast okay. The King is, you know, the maxim of like write what you know. I feel like King is just taken too far in later years. So like that book has a lot of AA in it. And I get that Stephen King has struggled with addiction and he knows about AA, but fuck, I don't want to read a whole book about AA. He's constantly going to meetings and struggling with his demons and getting chips and shit. It's just
I think thematically that's something that why it is a sequel to The Shining, because I think that book was about like addiction and struggling in the aftermath, and that was another scene that was cut where he kind of talked to his ghost dad about what happened.
Ghost dad Bill Cosby?
Yeah. Well, hey, want a drink?
Wow.
So yeah, he was talking to his dad about how what had happened had affected him and his mother. And I think like that character study of how addiction affects you and has long lasting impact on you. Like that one line in the bar is fucking phenomenal. Where he's talking about drinking and he's like, a man takes a drink and a drink takes a drink and then a drink takes a man. I thought that was fucking perfect for addiction. But
well,
anyway.
and Flanagan, I think, balanced it well. King made most of the book about it. And here's the thing where like realism versus what I actually would want in entertainment. So like if your dad goes crazy, tries to kill you and your mother with, in the book, it's a croquet mallet or a roque mallet instead of an axe. And you barely get away. And like, yes, you're going to be traumatized. You're going to be an addict. Probably you're going to, you might be an alcoholic, especially since Jack was an alcoholic. But I was done with the book. I don't really need to see Danny going through trauma and struggling to find himself. It's just, that's not what I signed up for. I don't know. It's The Shining. Like I want to see. It would have been better, I think, if it had been a straight sequel and just not worried about the true knot. And if he wanted to do a book with the true knot, then do the book with the true knot. And it doesn't need to involve Danny and everything. And like, if you're going to do a sequel, then it should involve the Overlook. It should involve the ghosts and the lady in room 217.
Were you excited about the prospect of a Shining sequel when you first heard about it?
No, because it was done. And I could only imagine what would come next. There was a lot more in the book. Danny's, they only give passing mention to it. The reason that it's called Dr. Sleep is because his like vocation is a nurse in a hospice for the whole movie, or the whole book. Sorry, not just one scene at the end or whatever in the middle. And he's helping people to die. Now, okay, that's interesting. But again, it's not interesting to read about for me. Like you're assisting people dying and you're going to AA. Like that's not the book I want to read.
What's the last Stephen King book that you really enjoyed? Like, I mean, chronologically from when he wrote it. So not something that you've read recently that may have been older, but.
Well, the first one where I felt like I didn't like it as much was Gerald's Game. And that was a long time ago.
But has he because he's not the author he used to be, right? I mean, that's okay. I mean, but when's the last time that you're like, man, that's a good book?
Probably whatever was before Gerald's Game. It might have been Dreamcatcher. I thought I liked kind of. It wasn't great, but I liked it.
Yeah,
I loved Insomnia.
I actually didn't read Insomnia. That's interesting. That's should read
Insomnia. That's a good one. He doesn't like it, so
it's his least favorite one, but it's also the only one he's ever plotted, written an outline for. So I bet you it's pretty solid. Bet you has an ending that works.
So I like the movie a lot, and I do like that it was a sequel to The Shining. And I feel like there is something. I haven't read The Institute. It's on my list.
Me too.
But I feel like there's, I feel like he wants to like kind of bring these worlds together. Like I feel like Firestarter, this, and like these special people and stuff that are in a lot of his different books. And I haven't seen the Hulu series, so I don't know how many different things they got going on. But I like the idea of shared world sort of thing, and that there's a bigger story here. And they do make references to the Dark Tower, and I hope that's not the shared world as much as maybe something else he's working towards, because I really didn't give a fuck about the Dark Tower after the movie. I don't even want to read the goddamn.
Oh my god,
it was terrible.
That has nothing to do with
it's totally different.
Yes, that's like seeing SpongeBob and being like, well, I can't go to the ocean now. It's just...
No, it's like watching SpongeBob and saying, well, I can't appreciate Hostel now. There's nothing in common.
It's really stupid, dude. That movie, I mean, 7 books, and they're king length, except for Gunslinger, which is like a fart. But the other 6 are like door stoppers, and they made a 91-minute movie.
So, but going back to Dr. Sleep, scenes I liked a lot was when Rose. They also showed how she found out where the girl lived. They cut that scene out of the movie. When she goes and like she floats into the sky and like goes and she's like floating over the city, I thought that was really fucking cool. This movie didn't scare me at all. Like when I was a kid, I saw The Shining and it scared me.
I think it was scary.
I would have liked a little more horror, I think, from it. I would have liked to have been genuinely scared. But
so the steam rape wasn't enough?
No, that was just sad.
But yeah, I agree. That didn't feel scary to me. It felt terrible.
But I like the scene where she goes and the girl Abra like tricks her and traps her. And you see the girl like kind of coming into her own power, and she's like just fucking smiling. And there's a few scenes like that where she comes into her power, and I thought that was really cool. But again, it wasn't scary enough because at no point did I really feel like she was in jeopardy at any time during the movie. And I need that in a movie. Like The Shining, the reason it worked for me when I saw it as a kid, I wasn't as scared recently when I saw it. But when, little Danny's riding his fucking big wheel or whatever it was. I feel like it was a big wheel, but in this
it was a big wheel.
Okay. So when he's riding his big wheel down the fucking hallways, that scared the fuck out of me as a kid. Like that's like the first time I was ever scared by a movie. So I want that from a good horror movie, and I did not get that from this. It was more dramatic. I enjoyed it for what it was.
The climactic lead up in the book when Danny is like going to the rescue, I don't remember exactly where it happens. He rides the train that goes through Teeny Town.
Oh God.
Exactly. Thank you. And I was like, I'm supposed to feel the rising music as I'm reading this scene? He's riding
Flight of the Valkyries.
Right. It's like there's a lot about that Teeny Town thing. I'm like, there's a lot about his relationship with his friend. They go to AA together.
I liked his friend's character. I didn't like how he was killed, and I know he wasn't killed in the book.
He was killed in a Dick Halloran way.
Yeah.
Like, okay, by the way, Poochie died on the way to his home planet. Did you guys know, if you knew from the credits or something, then it doesn't really count, but would you have known from watching who played Jack Torrance? Because I did not.
No, I didn't know. It was, I forget.
Henry Thomas.
Yeah. No,
Whoa.
I didn't know.
I know. That's what I thought.
I knew it when I read about
it. I can totally see it now. Now that you said it, I'm like, yeah, because he's kind of got that face in Hill House a little bit too. He just doesn't look like he used to.
Well, and they only showed that profile shot, like when in The Shining, it's when Jack is talking to Lloyd, the bartender, and it obscured, like, because what they could have done is Jack played by Jack Nicholson, was such an iconic character.
I wish they'd gotten Jack Nicholson for this.
If they had gotten close on him, it would have ruined it. It would have been like, that's not
Christian Slater. Christian Slater.
They could have gotten Christian Slater.
They did that perfectly. Oh, I never finished that thought too. So I like what he did with visuals a lot. It was when Danny first gets to the Overlook and he's, you know, kind of checking the hotel out, and he goes through the hallway and he passes the door where in the movie Jack put the axe through it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Here's Johnny door, and he puts his face just kind of in the slat, and for a moment that was a beautiful shot.
There was a lot of that, and that's what I loved.
He recreated the shot, like when they were driving up to the hotel. That was like
that was original helicopter footage, I believe, with that same score. They had a lot, that scene with the staircase where I don't remember what it is in Dr. Sleep, but in The Shining, it's when Wendy has the bat and she's got Wade choked up on. She's like, "Get away from me!" You know, they recreated that with Rose.
They recreated a lot of the hotel. They went through painstaking efforts to recreate,
and that was
parts
great.
they used.
I just didn't understand.
It was Shining porn for me, like probably uniquely appreciated by me because I really like that movie and I appreciate the tool set it took to recreate that.
I am curious how a hotel fucking worked. The lights and everything work after 30 whatever years since they've been in there.
You didn't see the generators in the basement? Because if not, you're going to have to get all the way off my back about that.
Okay. The gas or the oil or something would have dried up. I mean, it was just in pristine fucking condition, man.
Yes.
I leave my house for a month and the power went out. Like, it would take a year to get everything going.
You know that big ballroom, when they were shooting The Shining, there was a fire and they thought that they like lost all the footage.
Oh,
they had to recreate a lot. They did do a lot of digital, not digital because it wasn't digital at the time. They did do a lot of cleanup on the negatives and stuff. Anyway. Well, so any other thoughts on Dr. Sleep? It was just so schizophrenic.
I'm the only one that enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it, and I always enjoy seeing something with you guys that we can talk about, you know, and I do appreciate it. I didn't dislike it at all. I enjoyed every minute that I was watching it. I wasn't watching the clock. Like, I did like it. I did appreciate it. I'm just not going to see it again. And my big question was, my God, why is this a Shining sequel, which turned into, oh my God, you can't enjoy this movie unless you've seen The Shining. So,
you know what it reminded me a little bit of is this is kind of I don't know if this metaphor is going to work, but I'm going to try it anyway, is if you write a story and then there's some major note, something you have to change. And so you go back and change it, but you're trying to hang on to the essence of what the original story was, and you can't really divorce yourself enough to completely rewrite it. That's the way this felt to me. It felt like it had this albatross of it's the Shining sequel that he couldn't ignore. Yeah. Like I felt like he could have, in ordinary circumstances, he could have taken a script, he could have done his own adaptation of it and just reinvented the wheel. But there was so much expectation from sort of the weight of Stephen King, the weight of Stanley Kubrick and that film's like iconic place in film lore. And so I feel like he had to serve all of these masters. And I think he did a decent job of it. The whole just doesn't really work that well.
Did either of you read the sequel to The Talisman, Black House, I think?
I did read that. It was called Bleak House.
No, Bleak House is something different. It's Black House.
Oh, you're right. It is Black House. I'm thinking of something
Was it good? Because I love The Talisman is like my favorite Stephen King story, although I haven't read it since I was a kid, so I don't know how much I'd still love it.
I read it a long time ago. I remember liking it, but I was a lot younger, and I hadn't read The Talisman at the time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
have you read it since The Talisman?
I think. I mean, again, it's probably been 30 years.
I want to say I read, or I started to, but I thought this is too removed from, like, it was like Dr. Sleep, I imagine. It just
that's what I'm worried about. Like, I don't want to feel about the sequel to The Talisman like Johnny feels about Dr. Sleep.
I want to say that I started it, I felt the way that Johnny was feeling, and I stopped reading it. I made it like a third of the way through.
Okay.
Yeah, I put Dr. Sleep had a lot of marks against it because it took my blue sky, anything could happen after The Shining. Like I got to imagine what happened after that. And it put it into concrete form. And it in a way it made too much sense. It was the stuff Dave was saying. It was like, yeah, he would be fucked up,
Right.
but I mean, that all makes perfect sense. I just didn't care to see it.
Well,
I didn't want to see him work through his problems.
When we talked about this before this is even movie was even announced, you said Dr. Sleep took what The Shining did and just made it pointless or ruined it. What did you mean by that? What specifically? Yeah, what did you mean?
Well, it's hard to remember back to what I meant in the moment, but for instance, maybe something that I might have meant was, Danny was like the end all be all for this hotel, and he was very powerful in his own. He's the most powerful character in the book, or the movie for sure. He's a hell of a lot more powerful than Wendy or Jack, and this just kind of made him like, I don't know, he just felt kind of weak and boring and everyday to me. This girl dwarfs him, and I get that like shine is supposed to be more powerful when you're young, but still, like, Danny was a footnote, and it felt very tacked on. It felt like exactly the things that Sean has been saying. I felt like, why is this a sequel to The Shining? And if we're going to get a sequel to The Shining, why can't we see more of that storyline rather than introducing this entirely other group full of, carnies or something? Like, I don't know.
Oh, also in the book, the girl is actually related to him.
Yeah, she's Jack's daughter, I think.
Oh.
I think he's literally Uncle Dan.
He had an affair with the mom, and she makes reference in one of the scenes, I think one that was cut, about her grandmother like dying of cancer or something. So I think that's maybe how they met. I don't know.
Right, and that's the crucial thing that kills the True Knot in the book. The cancer.
And also there's a scene that was cut, which I thought was stupid, where they actually they cut this from the theatrical cut when Crow shows up and grabs the girl from the house. The father, they show him like try to fight him off, and it completely got rid of that. And I like that scene because he's like trying to tell him to get the fuck back. And
can you imagine how hard it is, though, to cut a half hour out of your movie and what you have to decide to let go and not? And
I feel like they could have cut some other shit. I don't know. There were some meandering moments, as there is in any Stephen King project, that they could have cut before these. I don't know.
There was, another thing that bugged me about this, and I don't know if it bugged you guys, was there was this attempt. This is the way I read it. There's an attempt to make us understand the True Knot and feel sorry for them a little bit, because like the old man dies, and hold on, Grandpa Flick or whoever his name is dying, and
right.
And I was just like,
you've like eaten 4,000 souls.
You guys are monsters. So as a filmmaker, don't cut things and use score to try and make me feel sorry for these people. I don't care about them. They just tortured and killed that kid and other kids. So that wrong for me too.
Well, there were other parts that were cut from the directors, from theatrical, where they kind of show more how this group is a family, and when you're in there, you're all fighting for each other's survival, and sort of that group think that sort of takes over. I would have liked to have seen that explored more, not less. I do think it was ineffective the way they did it, especially in the theatrical cut, though. So
that was in the book too, but that's another case where like it just felt schizophrenic. It was like, I feel like we could have made that a sympathetic group in a standalone story, but I don't know. It just didn't work. I've seen so many vampire stories where the vampires do terrible things, but you understand them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just didn't buy it with these guys.
Yeah, they were really one note, most of them. The only one I had any sympathy for was the young girl, that because she was normal when we find her. We don't, and she becomes this thing, but you don't really see the process of how she becomes this and gives up on whatever.
One note is a good way to describe it, because I also liked Rose the Hat. I didn't feel sorry for her. I didn't like her development, but she at least was interesting. The rest of them felt like cutouts.
She was interesting. Yeah. Stacy makes a good point. If they wanted to establish the family angle, they should have introduced them in a family way and not by killing Violet.
Right.
Yeah, in the very beginning.
Right. That actually would have been really interesting. Because before you even see what the terrible things they're doing, you get a chance to get to know them.
Yeah, you see them interacting with each other, and you give like them a moment to care. Like the the audience cares, and then you're seeing them do this horrible thing, and then you have to doubt the affection that you felt.
The thing that and I know we're going over here, but one of the thing that I think that Flanagan did well was he made setups and logical important things from The Shining pay off in the climax. So like having the overlooks ghosts that were troubling Danny and came out of the boxes was much more satisfying than what King did. That's what I felt like in the book was like King was, he is famously a pantser. And I feel like he got to the end of that book and he was dealing with the immediate, like last, okay, well, these are the last 30,000 words I wrote, so I'd better make those pay off. And like, no, you got to make this shit way back at the beginning pay off. Otherwise, what's the story about?
Like he forgot that.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't need to. You put a Stephen King, his name is this big and it's got a little image.
Like the Lawnmower Man?
Yeah. So,
That was a good movie. Let's watch that
best
next.
Movie.
It might be Jeff Fahey's best movie.
He is in some bad movies. That dude is not in good
That's
movies.
a shame. I've always liked him.
I know you were shitting on Lawnmower Man, but that was actually shitting on Jeff Fahey.
No, I liked Jeff Fahey. I don't know why.
I like him too. He's like super 80s. Like he was a cool guy.
What else has he been in? I'm drawing a blank.
He was
in
in
Lost, but
that's right. Well, that didn't count. That was just a normal role. He was in like some 80s
or whatever,
roles, right?
Yeah, he was in some different movies and a couple TV shows, I think. I don't remember what it was that made me like him. I just know that I did. And when he was cast for Lawnmower Man, I thought it looked really cool. Then I saw the movie. I was like, ugh.
That's what people thought VR was going to be. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Really glad we dodged that bullet.
All right. Well, this was fun. It's fun to analyze the movie. Overall, I guess after everything was said and done, I would give it sort of a neutral rating. I don't know that I liked it or disliked it. I liked the homage and I liked what he did, but I don't know that I enjoyed it as much as I could have.
I'm with Johnny on that.
I'd give it a B to a B plus.
I'd give it a solid B. I'm glad I saw it. I don't know who I'd recommend it to, which is the thing too. When I see a movie, I think, well, who would I tell this about? Who would I tell about this movie that would just be gaga? I don't know that I know anything.
Dave.
Gaga.
Children in Jeopardy.
Yeah, but even like I wouldn't recommend it to you because like I would recommend Bone Tomahawk to you before this, right?
Would you recommend it to me?
I don't think I would because it's the same thing. I think like, oh, dude, you know what? You'd probably like the
Just recommend the last half hour.
The last third because it's all Shining fetish, right? But just skip to the third. Like,
I would have liked it more as a 10-part miniseries.
I agree. I think if Dr. Sleep had been on, another Mike Flanagan HBO project, I bet it would have been awesome. Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry. Are you looking forward to Bly Manor? I think that's coming out in October.
Yeah, I'll watch anything he's involved in. Like he's got my trust. So.
Yeah, Bly Manor, which is his follow-up to Haunted Hill, was finished shooting right before COVID, so it's all post-production. So they'll have that this fall for sure.
Is it the sequel? Is it the follow-up to Haunting House, or is it like season?
No, it's a different story. It's Turn of the Screw.
Yeah, it's a follow-up. So essentially, it's a lot of the same actors and actresses.
Like American Horror
Yeah,
Story.
But there was supposed to be a season 2 of The Haunting. So this is not that or no?
Well, this is the season 2. It's
not
just
the
not.
same
It
story.
has nothing to do with
that
Hill
story's
House.
done.
Right, but this project, there's no other project that's not to Hill
this
House.
is season 2 of Haunting Hill House. It's the Haunting of Bly Manor.
I gotcha. Okay, well, I'm excited to see that.
And he's got his own thing going on. And I think there was another project I read about, like a horror sort of thing he'd been working on for a long time. I don't know. Like his own complete different thing. No. I would watch it though. If he takes over any shitty movie, I'll give it a shot because
I'll give anything.
If anyone could save a shitty movie, it's him.
He's definitely earned credibility. I'm watching. I know we totally got to go. But Damon Lindelof is another one of those people who has just all of a sudden earned it for me. Watchmen made him must watch for me, and
which is now on like Hulu or Prime or something that I do have, and I could have watched it for free.
I'm watching Leftovers, Dave.
Where are you?
I just watched the 3rd episode, which is my favorite so far. Like,
Dave's also watching
1?
Leftovers, but not on TV.
Yeah, season 1. It's the one where the Reverend's trying to save his church.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. It was a really good episode.
Season 2 is better than season 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're
And
not
I
seeing
love the
season
music.
3, right?
I haven't seen season 3 yet. I want to probably rewatch season 2. I don't know if I'll rewatch season 1 again.
Yeah, I'm digging it.
All
All right.
Do we know what we're talking about next week so I can tease it? I don't know that I know.
I don't know, actually.
All right, something.
Oh,
coming
wait,
next
no,
week.
it's next week, Idea Parkour?
Parkour.
I think Idea
I don't know. We
Parkour.
called it something else, I think.
Yeah. Well,
Who
that's
knows?
next
Something
week.
next week.
I'm going to be doing
Idea
parkour.
Extravaganza.
Stay tuned next week for something.
Fat guy parkour.
Oh, I want to see that.
Oh, I would watch that. Who would watch a Dave Parkour special?
Oh, all day long. That Dave would clean up if you did a Patreon with
I would need the money because I'd be in a hospital.
no, you just have to run at the wall and like hit it and fall down, and people will pay for
Break
that
the
shit,
wall.
dude. If you really did do a Dave,
It's like a Benny Hill sketch.
Yeah, you just do one, and then you're like, you want more?
That speed motion, and then he hits something, falls down.
That would be amazing.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching, listening to the Story Studio podcast. We'll see you next time.
Peace out.
Bye-bye.